I'm your host, Sean Aaron, and welcome to Dem Bois Podcast. This show is a platform where trans men of color voices can be amplified as we share our transitional stories and many other issues that are relatable to trans men of color and our existence. This show is not only to amplify our voices, but to raise awareness and conversation around our lived experiences.
Hey, this is Sean Aaron, the host of Dem Bois Podcast. Are you enjoying the podcast so far? Great, I'm glad that you are. Would you consider donating today to help support the continuation of this podcast? As you know, this podcast aims to serve as a platform to highlight and amplify the voices of trans men of color and share our transition stories. The podcast not only aims to amplify trans men of color voices, but it also raises awareness around our lived experiences. You would like to donate? Where can you donate? Great. I'm glad that you asked. Link in our description will take you directly to Network for Good, whom we've partnered with in order to collect donations for the podcast. Or you can visit our website. On the website, click the donate button, and from there, you are able to donate directly to the podcast. All donations are tax deductible. What does the donations go to? Oh, I'm glad that you asked. Your donation will help to support our production costs. We are working with Jasmine from Pink Lady Productions that brings you this awesome content. And also, we pay our guests an honorarium. Pay our guests an honorarium? Yes, we do. Why? Because as trans men of color, we would like to support and uplift each other and honor the time that's given out to come here and share their stories. So if you love this podcast, share and donate. See you on the next episode. Take care. Welcome back to Dem Bois Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Aaron, he, him, his. And for those of you who have been following the show, we are now on episode 17. Welcome back. We took a short break in November, but now we're back with new episodes, new guests, new topics. And so this episode is me sharing my coming out story. And you might think, hey, Sean, we 17 episodes in. Why are you sharing your coming out story now? Well, that's because the next 2 episodes, we're going to have an interesting conversation with 5 different folks with myself. And we talked about love, sex, and relationships as trans men of color. So I put a call out via social media. It's like, hey, would anybody like to have this conversation? I think this is a conversation within our community that we rarely have. I mean, openly have, right? We might have it amongst our chosen family or friends and people that we trust, but rarely have I heard this conversation openly so everyone can hear, right? Sometimes, on social media, people post things on the individual page, but that's other folks' individual journey. But I wanted to come together with other trans men of color and just discuss love, sex, and relationships on a broader scale, right? So that folks can hear and maybe some folks can relate to the stories. So I did talk about coming out in episode 3, Surviving Homelessness. I talked about me coming out to my mother and the reason why I was homeless because my mother didn't agree. And so she kicked me out when I was 18. I also talked about coming out in episode 1, why and how I transitioned. But I always say, I came out when I was 18, but I never went into detail. I actually came out at several times in my life. It started when I was young. I was still in elementary school. I probably was about, I don't know how old you are when you're in the second grade, first or second grade. I can't remember. But anyway, I came out that young to my mom. So I came out a few times to my mom. I came out a couple of times to cousins. I came out to my best friend when I was in high school. So I went through I came out in my 40s, late 30s again. So I have, coming out. I don't really like that. It's like coming out. What does that mean? I think it's actually inviting people into your life of like, hey, this is a part of me that I would like to share. And in light of coming out day in October, I was like, hey, I need to explore this topic on the podcast about coming out. So when I was younger, let's talk about like the first time. Well, the first time that I knew when I was younger. Well, when I was mostly younger in elementary school, I knew that I was attracted to. For this episode, I'm just going to say girls. When I was younger, I knew that I was attracted to girls. So as I got older, of course, things develop, right? You talk about not just girls, but then you talk about femininity and that comes along with everything else like trans women and gender nonconforming folks and all these different terms that when I was younger, we didn't have the terminology or the language for or the understanding for, right? So when I was in elementary, I think I was probably in the second grade, I knew at that time that the girls in my class were the people that I was mostly attracted to. So I used to have this one girlfriend. I remember her name, but I'm not gonna say her name. But I had this one girlfriend when I was in the second grade. We used to kiss each other. We used to hold hands in class when we had, when you're in elementary, you do like the little circle time and all that kind of stuff or whatever. We used to always be together and I would take the role and I was like, I would put my arm around her and I was like, oh yeah, this is the girl in my class that I like. And we never got teased. Luckily, that was a blessing, right? The teacher saw but never said anything about it, and probably just looking like, oh, these are two kids and they're friends, and this is how young people do, right? Younger people do or kids do. But in my mind, I knew that it was something that I enjoyed, right? So I remember going home to my mom, and also my mom on this particular day when I went home to my mom was watching a talk show, Donahue. For folks who's listening who don't know who Donahue is, it was a talk show, back in the 80s. And they covered all kind of issues, right? You have to Google Donahue talk show. But on this particular day, and I came home, they were talking about people being gay and lesbian. And I was like, I'm sitting there looking, and my mom is watching the TV. And so then I knew what they were talking about, but I didn't quite understand. So I said, Mom, uh, what is gay? And so she explained what gay meant to her and her words. And so not just what gay means or what being lesbian means, but what it meant to her. And that meant her perception of it and what she thought, right? So I said, oh, Mom, I think I'm gay. Oh, my mom had a fit. And if you listen to previous episodes, I talked about my mom and how religious she was. And I talked about, she never had her own opinion, right? And I talked about this in episode 14 with Mely about how she didn't have her own opinion and how her opinions was guided by church, was guided by the Bible and her interpretation of her religion, right? And so I actually got a whooping, a spanking, whatever you call it. I got my ass beat pretty much, right? And after I was done crying, she said, "You are not gay, and don't ever let me hear you say that again." Or pretty much in short, she said, "I'm gonna whoop your ass again." I was like, "Okay, well, I don't want to ass whooping, so I can't be this, and I'm not gonna ever say that again." So I didn't say it again for many, many years, even though the feeling was still there, but I didn't say nothing, right? So years went by. Another time came out when I was in junior high school. I used to drink a lot. When I was in high school, I drank a lot. You're like, how you in junior high drinking a lot? Well, I used to go to the liquor stores in the hood. They didn't necessarily care about your age. They just would sell you whatever, right? Tobacco products, alcohol products. It wasn't as it wasn't as it is now, right? Where there's so many laws and so many they get fines, they can lose their liquor license, all those things, right? All the repercussions of doing that. So a lot of times nowadays, well, I'm far removed from that, right? I'm far beyond 21, but then I could go and I could get liquor. So anyway, I used to drink a lot, and I don't know, I can't even thinking now, I don't know if it was because I was trying to drown myself in my reality. I'm not sure what the point of it was. I think I used to drink back then because I'm shy. And despite this podcast and despite me sharing my story and my truths here, I'm really shy in person. I have a hard time in groups. And so anyway, I used to drink because that was my way to be my personality to blossom more. I was able to talk more. I was able to engage with people that I didn't know. I was able to, just socialize more. I was more open, right? And so this one time, now this is I remember the story of me being drunk, but what happened after I don't remember. I just know what my mom told me. So anyway, so I was out drinking with my friends. It was like a Friday night or whatever. We was going to the high school football game on Friday night, but I kind of got belligerent. Like I was belligerent drunk. Unfortunately, I don't recommend that, especially at that age when you're not responsible and you don't know the consequences behind it, right? And I'm glad I made it home safe. And so I got home, and this is when my mom found out I was drinking because my friend sent me home in a taxi cab. I got home. And so a lot of things happened that I don't remember that my mom told me the next day. I won't go over that. But one of the things that she did tell me was I told her that I was gay within my drunkenness, right? And they all and I've heard a saying that a sober man's lie is a drunk man's truth. So that was like another time I came out to my mom, right? And so another again, she told me, "Don't you ever say that again." Okay, all right, lady. And so it was another time I remember coming out again when I was probably like even before that happened, when I was about 14 years old. I remember I would spend the night at my cousin's house all the time. I had two cousins, they were sisters, and I would spend the night with them. They were older than me, and I used to spend the night over there often. And so it was this one particular day, one of my cousins, we were going to the mall or whatever. So we were at the bus stop, and just randomly, I just felt like this burning desire. I was like, okay, this is my cousin. My cousin loves me. We cool. I think this is a moment I'm gonna say it. So I told my cousin, I said, well, I asked my cousin, I said, "Well, you know what being gay and lesbian is, right?" And she was like, yeah. I was like, I think that I'm a lesbian. And she didn't say nothing at first. And she just looked at me. And then she said, don't ever, ever let our uncle, which was her father, don't ever let our uncle hear you say that. Don't ever tell nobody else. Keep that to yourself. So this was another time, right, that I attempted to come out, and I was shunned, and I was told to be quiet, and I was told to, to be silent. And so I'm like, this can never come out. Like people don't want to know. So this was another time that I suppressed how I felt, and I didn't tell anybody else again. So I went on to the mall, but I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. I was saddened. I was sad that I told my cousin and I wasn't received in a way that I thought I would be. And I was also, disappointed that this is a part of my life that I then realized that I was going to have to keep to myself. And so I went on many, many years not saying anything, but the desire didn't go away. The feeling didn't go away. It was just my desire to tell other folks and bring other folks into my life. Right. So back to high school. When I was in high school, I had a best friend and we grew up together in church also. So we went to the same high school and we're still friends now. Right. So it was a day at church and I was like, I need to tell somebody this, right? And I remember even at church, my mom used to send me up to the altar all the time to get prayed on. And I was like, she knew. She'd be like, go up there, you need to get prayed on. So I remember it was a one before I tell about my friend. So I remember it was a one time when the preacher, it was like a revival type of thing, right? And she sent me up there. She was like, you need to go pray whatever that is apart for you, right? So we went up there together, and I don't know what she told his preacher or whatever, but I remember then he took me, and this is like in front of the whole church, right? So he got the microphone in his hand while he's saying this individual prayer for me, right? And so he was just saying that, to repent from my ways, and he gave me instructions. He was like, I want you to go do this. Don't listen to no type of music. Go and read your Bible and pray for whatever he said. I can't remember specifically, for like 7 days, and God is going to take that away from you or whatever. And I was like, oh Lord, my mama done told him I was a lesbian. That's what she whispered in his ear because his prayer was so specific to that, right? It catered to specifically that in his instructions on what I should and should not do in front of the whole church. So then again, I was once again embarrassed. I was once again saddened, like, yo, this part of me can't come out. This will never come out. Like, I'm gonna keep this hidden. This is what I thought, right? I just like I don't know anyone personally else that's gay or lesbian. And so I'm just gonna hide this and I'm gonna keep this to myself for the rest of my life. That's what I thought, right? Hey, this is Sean Aaron. I'm the founder and executive director of Dem Bois Inc. I am also the host of Dem Bois Podcast. As you may know, Dem Bois provides financial assistance to trans men of color in order for them to obtain gender affirming surgery. We have great news. We're currently looking for volunteers to help support our programs. Our programs include our gender affirming surgery grant program and also our personal care package program. We personally curate packages filled with personal hygiene items. Just to name a few, things like tissue, soap, towels, toothpaste, and toothbrushes. We mail them out to trans men of color across the country who may be in need of help caring for their personal hygiene needs. We are looking for volunteers to help raise funds to support our programs. Also, we're looking for someone locally to the Bay Area to help us put all of the care packages together. If our mission is something that resonates with you and you would like to help support our work, just let us know. You can send an email to hello@dembois.org. That is HELLO@DEMBOIS.org. And we will get back to you with further details. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the next episode. Back to my friend that I grew up with in church. And so one day I was like, I just got this, I would hear sermons about people being gay and lesbian, against it. And so in my mind, my whole life, I'm growing up like, this is bad. I can never let this come out. Something is wrong with me. And so I remember my friend at the time, I was like, no, I need to say this. I got something to say. Shit. I need to get it out again. Right. So I went to her and I was like, I got to talk to you. I was like, after church or whatever, whenever we could get a moment, I need to talk to you. And she was like, okay, cool. Cause I need to talk to you too. All right, cool. So later we meet up. I think we probably snuck out, probably said we was going to the bathroom. Cause at the church that I grew up with, they were very, very strict. Like you could not leave the church without supervision. You couldn't step outside unless you had a parent or they just would not allow children outside of the church unsupervised. So anyway, we snuck outside. And so I was like, I got something to tell you. She's like, I got something to tell you too. Okay, you go first. No, you go first. No, you go first. we doing this back and forth thing like, you go first. No, you go first. All right, fuck it. We just say it at the same time. And so we both said, I'm lesbian at the same time. That shit was so wild. And we just laughed. We laughed so hard. And then we was like, ooh, I'm glad we got that out. All right, let's go back in church. And so that was like a bond that we formed. And it was still a secret though, right? Like we knew about each other and we would talk about our attractions and who we liked and all these other things to each other, but it was never something that we let out to anybody else. So as when I was like day to day in high school. So in high school, I played sports, I played basketball, I played softball. And so not to say that women that play softball and basketball are also lesbians, but there were a few on the team. And everybody was denying it, even though we knew amongst each other, right? Two of the players on the team who were dating each other was two of my closest friends. And I knew they were dating, but when they were asked about it from everybody else, it was always denial, 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 right? So once again, it was embedded in my mind that this can never come out. Like this will never come out. Like it's just not safe, right? So I went on and on and on within my life and never was able to express how I felt until later in life. It was all really confusing to me because I had no guidance, right? And then you going based on what your friends say, and they don't know either. We growing up and learning at the same time. They don't know anything specific. And so I knew, and there was also at the church at the time, there was also this boy that I liked that went to the church. And now that I reflect back on it and the people that I tend to date, they all have the same type of personality. So I tend to date people who are extreme extroverts. And, because I'm shy, I always thought that it was because I was shy. And so I usually date folks that will have command presence in the room, right? And I always hid behind that because I was shy. So I never had to talk. So I always dated folks that were out there and that could talk and were very expressive and was the light of the party or whatever. And because I didn't have to say anything, I was always just a congregation. I was always just a congregation. So whatever you say, babe, amen, amen. You know what I mean? Like, and always in agreement with my partner, because that just took the limelight off of me and that made me not have to speak. But I knew that there was a guy at the church that I liked as well, but I never understood that either. But I was like, well, because I never had any guidance and I wasn't able to talk about it to anybody, I always suppressed that. I never was able to explain that. Well, is there a possibility that I could like both? I didn't, I never understood. So it's like, okay, I already came out that I was a lesbian, so I gotta stick to that, right? I have to stick to my guns. This is who I am, and I can't deviate from that, right? I didn't know anything about bisexuality. I didn't know anything about pansexual. I didn't know anything about any of those things, right? And at that time, too, a lot of the terms and terminologies in the language that we use today wasn't around. So I went through a majority of my adolescence and my teenage years and in adult years believing like, hey, there is no such thing as both. It's just either or. And so when I was intimate with a cisgender male when I was 19 years old, which was the most horrible experience I've ever experienced. Most horrible experience ever, right? And so then I was like, okay, well, I know it's official then, and that's not for me. I knew, I was like, that's not for me. So I kind of like hid all of that for a majority of my life, right? So I remember, so I talked about this in episode 3 when I was 18 years old. I came out to my mother. And it was, if you want to know like the specific details in the surviving homelessness episode, just go back and take a listen. But I came out to my mother at that time. And by this time, I guess my mom was like, I done heard this too damn much. You out of here. Right. Along with a few other things that she says that happened that I don't remember. But anyway, that was my other moment of like, okay, I came out again. Now I gotta go. And it was I and my mom, just to quick recap. So my mom gave me an eviction notice on my bedroom door, was like, you gotta get out. And at this time, and you know what? As I think about it, and like homelessness was horrible, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And I hate to see other people that are unhoused. But I think that was the most exhilarating and the most liberating thing I could have ever done, because I was able to leave her persecution, right? And I left and I was able to explore my life. I was able to explore who I was. I was able to develop as a person outside of her influence and negative thought, her putting negative thoughts in my mind, her negativity, her verbal abuse around it. And I was able to go out and live my life and explore who I was as a person, and not to be limited by the beliefs and the religious thoughts and beliefs of my mother. And so in some ways I feel blessed about that. And in some ways it's a curse, right? So it's a two-edged sword almost. It's a blessing and it's a curse. So I felt like I was able to live my life. So I'm like, okay, I got this. This is me. I know who I am. I'm strong in who I am. And I've always been a masculine of centered person, even before transitioning. So that was never nothing that was should have been a surprise to my mom. Like that was always me, right? And not that masculinity determines your transness or not, but that was just who I am. This is just my story, right? And my journey. And so I went years and years and years, and I went from one relationship to the other, dating, been married twice. And it got to a point in my life where I was able to explore different parts of me that I had never explored before. So I went through my life. And so when I was 35, I had another experience. And I thought I had myself all figured out. I was like, this is life. This is who I am. I have transitioned. I'm walking in the world as a trans masculine individual. I know who the fuck I am. Don't ask me who I am, because I already know. And then I had to come out again. So I met someone at that time who was a cisgender man, who is a cisgender man, and we became heavily involved with one another. And I was actually married at the time, a little bit of transparency. and that did not end well. It did. I won't say it didn't end well. It didn't look well, right? Because I was in a relationship. I was in a monogamous relationship with someone, and I violated her trust. I violated the relationship and the agreements that we had to be monogamous to one another. But this took a shift in my life because I'm like, wait a minute. And for many years, I mean, I would say at least the first 3 years after this encounter, I was confused. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought I had my life figured out. Like, I thought I knew who the fuck I was. Like, where is this coming from? Where is all of this? Is this something that I should have dealt with 20 years ago? Like, what is this? Right. So I went searching for who I was. And so I ended up coming out, not to the world. I guess that's what I'm doing now. Right. But I did it within myself. I had to do some searching within myself. I was like, wait a minute. Wait, what is this? And I learned so much about myself. And I learned that a lot of the things that I didn't think I could do was because of things that I was told, things that I learned from other people, and things that I've seen within our communities, and how we, as trans men of color, we don't talk about our love and relationships, love, sex, and relationships, right? So you think that, I don't know, nobody else is doing this. Nobody else has this type of relationship. No one else is doing these type of things within their life, when in actuality they are. And so I had to really search for myself. And so then even now, right? I'm 7 years later, I'm 42 years old. And I still question myself, like, who am I? I mean, I think now I really have it figured out of who I am and who I'm attracted to and who I love. And I'm really attracted and love someone, anyone really. And that's the reality of it. It could be anyone. I don't know if that's, with terminology of like pansexual. I don't know what it would be for me. I don't actually identify with any of those terms. I think that I'm more so identified with, if someone is someone that I'm attracted to, and if they have all the qualities that I love in a person, I'm willing to explore that. And that's just what it has become in my age now and who I am now. So whoever that may be, it's like, hey, maybe it's that woman in apartment 2A, or there's no apartment 2A here, but I'm just saying, hypothetically, maybe it's the woman in 2A, or maybe it's the trans woman in 6C, or it's just like, it doesn't matter to me. I think that it's more so, I want someone to have the values that I admire, and of all things, I love people that are very intelligent. I'm attracted to intelligence, right? And so it's like all of these things are like, and I'm like, how did I not know this? Like, I think we don't talk about it enough, and we don't honor each other's journeys enough. We don't share enough. We don't love on each other enough. And I think if we do those things, then people, it wouldn't be this big hoop to do about coming out. It's like people could just be who they are whenever they want to be, however they want to be, right? In a loving and loving community, right? So I think that my advice to someone who is struggling, and I won't even say struggling with who they are, like, internally, we have that sense of direction of who we are. It's about projecting it outward, right? And I said earlier that I don't like the term coming out. I feel like it's a lot of pressure. Like, we shouldn't have to do that. We should just be who we are and exist, right? Even like coming out day, I think that, don't use that day for you to come out. I feel like you should come out whenever you feel necessary, in a place that's safe. If you feel safe, if you feel loved, if you feel held, I think that's the time to come out. Not on a specific date, not on a specific time or whatever, not at a specific time in your life. I think that you have to be true to yourself, and only you know when is the right moment for you to let other people into your life and who you are as a person. So I think my advice would be to, don't listen to other people, really. I think you should listen to your heart. I think that's one of the things that I did as I was dating folks as I got older. Was I like all these rules, like, especially when I was identified as a lesbian and I was a masculine, a center woman. It was like, okay, because you're a masculine, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this. Even I'm talking in the bedroom and outside the bedroom, just in life, right? You're masculine, you got to do this, and you should do that, and this. Like, for instance, if you're a masculine person, I was told, one of the things that I was told, because I was a masculine person, I couldn't be the little spoon. Wait, what? I love being a little spoon. So for years, I was never a little spoon because I was told that because I was a masculine person, I couldn't be a little spoon. So I think that's horrible, right? I think you should move in a way that feels comfortable for you, and you should move with someone that makes you feel comfortable, makes you feel loved and heard and seen, right? No matter who it is that you're involved with. So I'm so excited for this next episode coming up, the next 2 episodes coming up, right? We have 5 individuals. The title of the episode is Love, Sex, and Relationships, Part 1 and Part 2. And you're going to hear conversations about all of those things, right? Love, sex, and relationships from all different forms of love and from trans men of color, really, right? And I'm so excited for that episode. I'm so excited for you to hear that episode. So remember, if you have a question that you would like to hear myself answer or a future guest of the show answer, send your questions to hello@dembois.org. That is HELLO at dembois.org. Until next time, take care.
Thank you for listening to today's show. Once again, I'm your host. My name is Sean Aaron. Be sure to like, be sure to share this show out with folks in your networks. If you would like to connect with us, be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook. You can also visit our website at dembois.org. That's DEMBOIS.org. If you think you will make a great guest on the show, or maybe you have a question for myself or a future guest that you would like to hear answered on the show, please send an email to hello@dembois.org. That's HELLO@dembois.org. Until next time, take care.